Prayer is simply talking to God like a friend and should be the easiest thing we do each day.
We wake up, and before our feet even touch the floor, our minds are already running. Messages wait on our phones, worries replay from yesterday, and a quiet pressure settles on our shoulders to figure everything out. In the middle of all that noise, this simple line about prayer feels almost shocking. Talking to God like a friend, no script, no performance, just honest words from a real heart. So much of our stress comes from trying to carry life alone, even when we say we believe in a God who listens. This message today is a gentle invitation to come back to what is simple and powerful. Pray earnestly, then place what you cannot control into God's hands and move into your day with a lighter heart. Maybe you have been praying for a long time and nothing seems to change. Maybe you whisper quick words here and there, but deep down you wonder if God is actually paying attention. Maybe you feel guilty because your mind wanders or your emotions feel messy when you try to pray. You are not the only one who feels that way. The good news is that God is not asking for a perfect performance. He is asking for a sincere heart. Today we are going to walk through what it really means to pray with your whole heart and not just with your words, so that your prayer life becomes less of a duty and more of a living friendship with the God who knows you completely. Pray with your whole heart, not just with your words. Martin Luther described it powerfully when he said, "To be a Christian without prayer is no more possible than to be alive without breathing," reminding us that prayer is not an optional extra, but the lifeline of our faith. Those words sound intense, yet when you really think about them, they make sense. Breathing is automatic. You do not sit there reminding yourself to inhale and exhale. Your body does it because it needs to stay alive. In the same way, your soul was made to stay connected to God, and prayer is that connection. But somewhere along the way, many of us turn prayer into something stiff and distant. We worry if we sound holy enough. We repeat certain phrases because we think that is what God wants to hear. We compare ourselves with others who seem to pray longer, louder, or with more beautiful words, and we quietly conclude that our simple voice is not enough. The truth is, God is not impressed by complicated sentences. He is moved by honesty. Prayer with your whole heart means bringing the real condition of your inner world to Him. That includes your love and gratitude, but also your fears, your confusion, your disappointment, and even your frustration. When you pray earnestly, you are not acting strong for God. You are admitting where you are weak and trusting that He can meet you there. You do not need to clean up your emotions before you come to Him. In fact, trying to hide what you feel only builds a wall. The moment you begin to speak honestly, that wall starts to fall. The Bible in Colossians 4:2 gently calls us to a deeper rhythm with God when it says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful," inviting us to stay awake to His presence and anchored in gratitude. This line from Scripture brings two beautiful words together: watchful and thankful. Being watchful means paying attention to what is really happening inside and around you instead of rushing through the day on autopilot. Being thankful means noticing the traces of God's goodness even in an ordinary morning. When these two attitudes shape your prayer, something shifts. You come to God aware of what hurts, but also aware of what helps. You can say, "Lord, my heart feels heavy about this situation," and in the same breath, "Thank you that I am not facing it alone." That combination of real pain and real gratitude is where deep connection with God grows. Maybe right now your life feels like a mixture of unanswered questions and small, quiet blessings. You might be carrying concerns about money, relationships, health, or the future. Bring each one of those concerns into your conversation with God. Speak to Him about the bill you do not know how to pay. Talk to Him about the argument that still echoes in your mind. Tell Him about the fear that keeps showing up in your thoughts late at night. Then, in the same conversation, thank Him for the roof over your head today, the breath in your lungs, the person who checked in on you, the strength that kept you going yesterday when you wanted to give up. This is not pretending that everything is fine. It is learning to see that even in the struggle, God has not stopped caring for you. John Wesley once reflected that God does nothing but by prayer and everything with it. A reminder that our prayers are not empty words, but a real part of how God chooses to work in and through our lives. This quote does not mean that God is powerless without us. It means He has chosen to work in a way that includes our prayers. That alone is incredibly honoring. The God who spoke galaxies into existence also listens when you whisper His name in a quiet room. When you pray earnestly, you are not just sending words into the air. You are participating in what God is doing in your life and in the world. Prayer becomes less of a last resort and more of a first response. You begin to see that before you send another worried message, before you replay the situation in your mind for the 100th time, you can take it to God and ask for wisdom, strength, and peace. Praying with your whole heart does not always mean praying for a long time. Some of the most powerful prayers are short and sincere. A simple "God, I need you" can be a deeper act of trust than a speech that never truly opens your heart. The focus is not the length of your prayer, but the depth of your honesty. When you feel anxious about the day ahead, you can pause for a moment, not to follow a rigid formula, but to talk to God about exactly what is making you nervous. When joy surprises you, you can turn it into gratitude by saying, "Thank you, Lord, for this moment." These small, genuine responses begin to shape a life that stays in conversation with God from morning to night. In a busy world, distraction is one of the biggest enemies of heartfelt prayer. You might sit down to talk with God and suddenly remember every unfinished task, every notification, every worry. Do not be discouraged when that happens. Instead, let those distractions become the very material of your prayer. If your mind jumps to your to-do list, bring that list to God and talk through it with Him. If your thoughts wander to a person you are worried about, pray for them right then. If you start thinking about a mistake you made, tell God how you feel about it and ask for His forgiveness and guidance. In this way, nothing is wasted. Even your wandering thoughts can become a pathway back to Him when you choose to include Him in them. Another important part of praying with your whole heart is giving God space to reshape your perspective. Sometimes we only come to Him to present our requests without ever inviting Him to correct us, to lead us, or to show us where our attitudes need to change. Honest prayer is not just telling God what you want. It is also asking Him what He wants to grow in you through this season. You can say, "Lord, I am asking for this door to open, but I also want to see what you are trying to teach me while I wait." That kind of prayer keeps your heart soft. It helps you stay open to God's work in your character, not just in your circumstances. When you begin to pray this way, your mornings can slowly look different. Instead of immediately stepping into stress, you step into a conversation. You talk to God about the meeting you have, about the decision that is coming, about the responsibility that weighs on you. You tell Him where you feel weak and where you feel hopeful. You remember that the day you are about to live is a day He already sees from beginning to end. That awareness brings courage. You are not walking into the unknown by yourself. You are walking with the one who promises to never leave you. You might still wonder, though, what it means to be earnest in prayer. Earnest prayer is not about volume. It is not about sounding intense. It is about being fully present. Your mind is not halfway in the conversation while the rest of you is worrying somewhere else. Your heart is engaged. Even if your prayer is quiet, even if your words are simple, you genuinely mean what you say. That kind of sincerity honors God. He already knows every detail, but He values the moment you willingly lay those details before Him and say, "This is where I really am. Meet me here." If you have felt distant from God because you believed your prayers were too small, too messy, or too inconsistent, let this be the morning you begin again. You do not have to wait until you feel more spiritual. You do not have to fix yourself first. Bring the version of you that exists right now, the tired you, the hopeful you, the confused you. Open your mouth and speak honestly. When words fail, simply sit for a moment and let your heart turn toward Him even in silence. God understands that language too. As this day unfolds, remember that prayer is not only something you do at the beginning and end of the day, it can be woven into every moment. When you are driving, you can talk to God about the person you are going to meet. When you are cooking or cleaning, you can turn that time into quiet conversation with Him about your family, your dreams, your worries. When you face a small decision, you can quickly ask for guidance before you choose. Little by little, prayer stops feeling like a separate box on your schedule and becomes the thread running through the whole fabric of your life. Before we move on, pause for a moment and imagine what your life could look like if this became your normal rhythm. Imagine waking up tomorrow and instead of immediately feeling chased by your worries, you begin the day by speaking to God as naturally as you would speak to a close friend. You mention what you are excited about, what makes you nervous, and what still feels unresolved. You do not filter yourself. You do not pretend to be stronger than you are. You tell the truth. And in that truth, you begin to sense that you are not facing the day alone. Over time, that simple habit can change the way you carry every challenge. One very practical way to grow in this is to attach prayer to something you already do every morning. Maybe it is the moment you make your coffee or tea. Maybe it is while you are brushing your teeth or putting on your shoes. Choose one of those regular moments and quietly decide that from now on, this will be your built-in reminder to talk to God. While the water boils or the toothbrush moves, you can say, "Lord, here is what is on my mind today," and just begin. Keeping it connected to a familiar action helps your heart remember that God belongs in your everyday routine, not only in rare special times. Another simple practice is to give each day a short, honest sentence before it even begins. For example, you might say, "God, today I feel overwhelmed, but I want to trust you." Or, "God, today I feel hopeful, please lead me." Or, "God, today I feel numb, please awaken my heart." These little sentences are not magic formulas. They are just truthful starting points. From there, your prayer can grow naturally. But even if it does not, that one sincere line still matters. It is like opening a window so that God's presence can move more freely in your awareness throughout the day. As you start to pray with more sincerity, you might notice emotions or memories rising that you have tried to push away. Let that be okay. When something painful surfaces in prayer, it is not a sign that God has abandoned you. Often, it means He is touching a place that needs healing. Instead of shutting it down, dare to talk to Him about it. You can say, "Lord, this memory still hurts," or "I do not understand why this happened," or "I feel ashamed of this part of my story." Speaking these things in His presence is an act of courage. It breaks the power of isolation and invites God's comfort into rooms of your heart that have been closed for a long time. Honest prayer also changes how you see other people. When you begin to regularly bring your own weaknesses and flaws to God, it becomes easier to be patient with the weaknesses and flaws of those around you. You remember how much grace you need, so you become more willing to extend grace. When someone offends you, instead of only venting to a friend or replaying the conversation endlessly, you can talk to God about what happened. You can admit that you are angry or hurt and then ask for wisdom about how to respond. In that conversation, God can calm your reactions, soften your heart, and show you a better way forward. One of the most freeing parts of praying with your whole heart is that you no longer feel pressure to hide from God when you stumble. In the past, maybe you pulled away from prayer whenever you made a mistake, feeling unworthy to come close. But when you understand that God already sees everything and still invites you to draw near, you can run to Him instead of running away. You can say, "Lord, I failed here. I said something I should not have said. I did something I regret. Please forgive me and guide me." That kind of prayer brings your shame into the light where it can no longer control you. It does not make the consequences vanish, but it restores your connection with the one who can lead you through them. Little by little, your heart begins to trust that prayer is not a test you either pass or fail. It is a relationship you are learning to live in. Some days your words may flow easily, other days they may feel clumsy or dry. God is steady in both. His attention does not flicker when your focus wavers. His love does not shrink when your emotions feel flat. When you remember this, you become less obsessed with judging your own prayers and more relaxed about simply showing up. The victory is not in crafting impressive phrases. The victory is in coming to Him again and again. Think about how you talk with someone you truly love and trust. You do not always have deep, intense conversations. Sometimes you share quick updates and random thoughts. Other times you sit together in silence, simply glad to be near. Prayer can look like that too. You can tell God about small joys, like a beautiful sky, a good meal, or a funny moment that made you smile. You can sit quietly at the end of a long day and just let your tired heart rest in the awareness that He is close. These simple interactions matter. They stitch your daily life into a deeper sense of companionship with Him. If at this point you still feel unsure, remember that God understands your starting point better than anyone. He knows your personality, your background, your fears, and your habits. He knows if talking out loud feels strange to you or if writing your prayers in a notebook feels more natural. He knows whether your mind races or moves slowly, whether you express yourself best with words, with tears, or with quiet thoughts. He is not grading you, He is guiding you. Whatever honest expression helps you bring your heart to Him, He welcomes. So as we close this first part of our journey, let this truth settle deep within you. God is far more interested in the real condition of your heart than in the polished sound of your language. When you speak to Him with sincerity, you are already pleasing His heart. When you let Him into the corners of your worries, your hopes, and your pain, you are already walking in the kind of prayerful life that transforms everything. This is the foundation. From here, every step you take in faith, every decision you bring to Him, every fear you lay down will grow from this living connection. We have focused on praying with your whole heart, not just with your words, because this is where strength is born. Once that connection is alive and honest, the next question becomes very practical. How do you live the rest of your day after you say amen? Do you go back to carrying the weight by yourself? Or do you learn to move forward, doing what you can and trusting God with what you cannot control? In the next part, we will explore how heartfelt prayer and faithful action work together, so that your life becomes a beautiful partnership with the God who listens to every word and walks with you into every moment. As you listen now, let hope rise quietly inside you, because this kind of honest prayer is a sign that God is working in you. Do what you can, then trust God with what you can. Søren Kierkegaard once observed that prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays, reminding us that the real transformation often happens inside our own hearts as we come before God. When we talk about trusting God, many people imagine a passive kind of surrender, like sitting back and waiting for heaven to fix everything while life falls apart around them. That picture is not what Scripture calls us to live. Real trust looks more like this. You pray earnestly, you step forward and do the best you know to do, and then you release the outcome into hands far wiser than yours. The change that happens through prayer does not turn God into someone more willing to help. It turns your heart into one that can walk, work, and even struggle with a different kind of courage. There are parts of your life that God has clearly placed under your responsibility. You are invited to show up fully in your work, your relationships, your decisions, your health, and your calling. At the same time, there are layers you simply cannot control: the reaction of another person, the timing of an opportunity, the unforeseen events that interrupt even your best plans. Learning to do what you can and then trust God with what you cannot is a maturing process. It stretches you away from anxiety and toward a calmer dependence. That dependence is not weakness. It is an honest recognition that you are human and God is God. Scripture gives us a clear invitation in Proverbs 16:3, where it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans," calling us to place both our efforts and our outcomes in His hands. Notice how that verse begins, "whatever you do." It does not say whatever you only think about, or whatever you endlessly worry over in your head. The assumption is that you will actually do something. Trust does not cancel action. Trust purifies motive and anchors effort. It means you start that project, study for that exam, apply for that job, apologize for that harsh word, or finally book that appointment, not as someone who must control every variable, but as someone who has placed both effort and outcome in God's care. You still make a move, but you do it with a quieter heart. Think about the times in your life when overthinking has stolen more energy than the actual task ever demanded. Maybe an email needed to be sent, a phone call needed to be made, a difficult conversation needed to happen. Instead of taking the step, your mind ran in circles, imagining every possible response and every possible failure. Hours passed, sometimes days, while nothing actually changed in reality. Trusting God with what you cannot control invites you out of that exhausting mental loop. It gently says, "Do the next faithful thing in front of you and let me handle the part you cannot see." This does not mean you ignore wisdom or preparation. It means you resist the illusion that if you just think hard enough, worry long enough, or plan perfectly enough, you will guarantee the outcome you want. The more you live, the more you realize that many turning points in life rest on factors you could never have predicted or managed. God is not asking you to carry the weight of His sovereignty on your shoulders. He is asking you to be faithful with your piece of the story and to remember that He is still the author of the whole book. Sometimes people hesitate to act because they are afraid of making the wrong move. They desperately want God's guidance, which is a beautiful desire, but they confuse divine guidance with absolute certainty. In most seasons, God does not hand you a detailed map with every step labeled. More often, He gives you enough light for the next step and asks you to trust Him with the road beyond it. Doing what you can means you pray, you seek wise counsel where possible, you weigh your options, and then you step. Trusting God with what you cannot control means that after you step, you do not torment yourself with endless second guessing. Elbert Hubbard once remarked that God will not look you over for medals, degrees, or diplomas, but for scars. A powerful reminder that heaven values our courage and faithfulness far more than our worldly achievements. This line reminds us that a life fully lived in faith will not always look polished. There will be attempts that did not work, risks that did not unfold as you hoped, efforts that cost more than they seemed to return. Those are not signs that you failed God. They are signs that you tried, that you stepped out instead of hiding from every possibility of pain. When you offer those scars to God, along with the work that caused them, you are also offering Him your trust. You are saying, I chose to act because I believed you could use even imperfect outcomes for good. In a world that worships results, heaven values obedience. People around you may judge success by numbers, titles, and visible gains. God, however, sees the late-night prayers, the quiet sacrifices, the hard choices to do what is right when no one is applauding. Doing what you can before God means you work with integrity and love, even when the visible reward seems small. Trusting Him with what you cannot means that you refuse to define your worth by external measures. You let God tell you who you are, and you let Him decide how your faithfulness will ripple into eternity. On a practical level, this principle meets you every single day. When you sit down to work, you can whisper, Lord, I offer you this hour. Help me to focus and to serve well. Then you actually turn your attention to the task, resisting distractions as best as you can. When a difficult exchange happens, you can pray afterward, God, I did not handle that perfectly, but I tried. Show me if I need to apologize or make it right, and give me courage to do so. Then you take whatever redemptive step is needed and entrust the rest to Him. This rhythm slowly shifts you from paralysis into purposeful movement. Another area where doing what you can and trusting God with what you cannot becomes vital is in caring for the people you love. You cannot change hearts. You cannot force someone to heal, to believe, to choose wisely. What you can do is pray for them, speak truth with kindness, show up in practical ways, and then release them into God's patient hands. Carrying the full burden of another person's journey will crush you. Leaning into God's role as the one who ultimately works inside human hearts will free you to love without trying to control. Sometimes, trusting God with what you cannot control will mean accepting that timing is not in your hands. Doors you want to open remain closed for reasons you do not understand. You may be tempted to see every delay as rejection, but often delay is protection or preparation. While you wait, your calling is not to freeze in place. Your calling is to keep growing where you are. You can learn, serve, practice, and build character right in the middle of unanswered prayers. That way, when the door finally opens, you will walk through it as someone who has been trained in faithfulness rather than in patience. Doing what you can also includes taking care of your body and your mind in simple, wise ways. You may not be able to change every circumstance pressing on your life, but you can choose to rest when you need it, to eat in a way that strengthens you, to seek encouragement from healthy community, and to guard what you feed your thoughts with. These small acts of stewardship are not separate from your spiritual life. They are part of it. When you treat your life as something entrusted to you by God, rather than something you own outright, you begin to handle even daily habits with more reverence. Trusting God with what you cannot control means relinquishing the need to know how every story ends before you are willing to take the next step. Many of us ask for certainty before obedience. We want guarantees that the relationship will work, the business will succeed, the move will bring happiness, the change will feel comfortable. God rarely offers that kind of guarantee. What He does offer is His presence. He promises to be with you in the courage, in the risk, in the learning, and even in the disappointment if it comes. His companionship is the real safety. Think of the peace that begins to grow when you internalize this balance. On one side, you become a person who shows up and participates fully in life. You stop waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives and instead take the steps available today. On the other side, you learn to bless each outcome, whether it matches your desire or not, by saying, "Lord, I did this as an act of faith. I give the result back to you." That attitude dismantles the lie that everything depends on you. It allows you to rest, even while you work hard, because you know an all-knowing God holds the bigger picture. When fear of failure rises, it often whispers that if you try and fall short, you will be exposed as inadequate. But when you root your identity in God's love instead of human achievement, failure loses its power to define you. You can attempt something bold, and if it does not succeed the way you imagined, you can still stand, because your worth never came from the outcome in the first place. Doing what you can becomes an expression of worship rather than a desperate grasp for validation. Trusting God with what you cannot becomes an act of surrender that keeps your heart soft instead of bitter. There will be days when you misjudge circumstances and make decisions that you later regret. Trusting God in those moments means believing that He is able to redeem even your missteps. He can use lessons learned through pain to shape you into a wiser, more compassionate person. None of this minimizes the reality of consequences, but it does protect you from living under a cloud of shame. Instead of getting stuck in, "What if I had," or "I should have," you turn to Him and say, "Teach me from this and lead me forward." That posture keeps your life moving even after hard seasons. As you practice this way of living, your prayers will start to sound different. They will still carry requests, but they will also carry willingness. You will find yourself saying not only, "God, please make this happen," but also, "God, guide me to do what is right here and help me trust you if things unfold differently than I expect." That shift in language reflects a deeper trust. You no longer approach God only as the one who grants your wishes, but as the one who shapes your character through the pathway He chooses. Over time, you might notice that anxiety does not disappear overnight, yet it slowly loses some of its grip. The more you practice doing what is in front of you and entrusting the invisible pieces to God, the less power your imagination has to torment you with worst-case scenarios. When a fearful thought comes, you can respond, "I have already placed this in God's hands, and I am doing what I can. The rest does not belong to me." Speaking to yourself in that way is not denial. It is choosing which voice to believe. In the middle of all this, give yourself permission to be in process. No one lives this perfectly. Some days you will slide back into control mode, overanalyzing every detail and forgetting to pray. Other days you will swing too far toward passivity, waiting for God to move while you ignore clear responsibilities. The point is not flawless balance. The point is returning again and again to the truth you know. When you notice that you have drifted, come back, pray earnestly, take the next faithful step, hand the rest to Him. Eventually, this rhythm becomes more natural. You wake up, and instead of instantly drowning in pressure, you begin the day by acknowledging God's nearness. You ask for His help, and then you set your mind toward the tasks that genuinely belong to you. Throughout the day, you continue the conversation, inviting Him into meetings, errands, and quiet moments alike. At night, you review what you could do, offer it to Him, and let go of the pieces beyond your reach. Little by little, peace seeps into the cracks where panic used to live. This is where the themes of this message start to come together. Prayer with your whole heart connects you to the heart of God. Action with humble trust places your energy into that connection. Surrender of the outcome keeps you free from the crushing weight of godlike responsibility. All three movements matter, and part 2 is about that middle movement, choosing to act while held by grace. As you carry this into your own life, remember that God delights in seeing His children move forward in faith. He is not waiting for you to prove yourself flawless before He supports you. He rejoices over each step that reflects your belief that He is real, present, and involved. When you send the application, make the call, show up on time, study diligently, speak gently, or choose honesty even when it costs you. Heaven notices. Those simple acts done with a heart turned toward God are seeds. You plant them in the soil of obedience, and you trust Him to decide the harvest. One of the quiet fears that often keeps people stuck is the thought that if they truly let go and trust God, they will lose control of their dreams. Deep down, many are afraid that surrender means their desires will be ignored or pushed aside. Yet Scripture paints a different picture, one in which God knows the dreams He Himself planted in the heart long before they took shape in words. When you trust Him with what you cannot control, you are not handing your future to a stranger. You are placing it in the care of the one who understands you more deeply than you understand yourself, and whose plans always weave your good together with His glory. This understanding changes the atmosphere around your efforts. Instead of treating every opportunity as a once-in-a-lifetime chance that must not be wasted, you begin to see opportunities as part of a longer story written by a faithful author. If one possibility closes, it hurts, but it does not destroy you, because you believe that God is capable of opening another in the right season. Your job is to respond to the opportunities in front of you with faith and diligence. His job is to guide which ones bear fruit. That mindset breaks the desperation that so often clings to ambition and replaces it with a steadier confidence. There is also a deep kindness in the way God sometimes limits what you can do. You might see only restriction when resources feel small, doors stay shut, or strength runs low. Yet those limitations often protect you from running at a pace that would burn you out, or from chasing paths that would ultimately hollow out your soul. Doing what you can inside God-given limits and entrusting the rest back to Him acknowledges that you were never meant to live as an unbounded, self-sufficient force. You were meant to live as a beloved child who rests in a father's wisdom, even when it conflicts with personal timelines. As this balance grows in your life, you start to notice subtle shifts in how you talk about your circumstances. The language moves from everything is on me toward I will be faithful with this, and I trust God with what happens. Even when you feel nervous, you can still choose sentences that align with trust. You tell a friend, I have done my part. Now I am praying and leaving it with God, and you mean it. Those words are not a slogan. They are a declaration of where you have decided to place your weight. Over time, that choice shapes your inner posture far more than you realize. Finally, remember that God sees the long arc of your life when all you can see is the next curve in the road. From His perspective, every act of obedience, every small step of faith, every decision to do what you can and release what you cannot is part of a larger design. One day, in hindsight, many things that confuse you now will make deeper sense. Until then, you live in the trust of not yet seeing. That is the space where character is formed, where resilience is forged, and where intimacy with God grows rich and real. Lean into that space, not as a punishment, but as a sacred place where your faith becomes more than words. In that sacred place, trust matures quietly, and your life begins to reflect a deeper, settled strength within. So as we transition from this part to the next, hold this picture close. Your life as a partnership with God. Your hands take care of today's tasks. His hands hold tomorrow's outcomes. Your role requires courage, effort, and responsibility. His role carries wisdom, power, and perfect love. You step into what you can, not because you are in control, but because you are not alone. In the next part, we will explore how to truly leave your cares in God's hands and walk through each day with a deeper peace, even while questions remain and prayers are still unfolding. For now, let this truth settle. When you do what you can in faith and entrust the rest to Him, you are already living a life shaped by real, active trust. Leave it in God's hands and walk into the day with peace. In Psalm 55:22, we're gently urged to let go of what weighs us down with the promise. Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken, assuring us that we are not meant to carry our burdens alone. When you have prayed with your whole heart and done what you can, a different challenge appears. Your mind still wants to circle back to the problem, to replay scenes, to imagine every possible future. Trust is not only something you say to God, it becomes a posture you practice in the hours and days after your prayer. This verse from the Psalms does not invite you to lightly place your worries beside God as if keeping a backup copy in your pocket. It calls you to cast them, to hand them over with the seriousness of someone letting go of a heavy weight. He promises to sustain you, not because life suddenly turns easy, but because you are no longer carrying everything alone. Leaving your cares in God's hands begins with an honest admission that your own hands are tired. So much of inner exhaustion comes from trying to hold on to what was never meant to rest on your shoulders in the first place. You might feel responsible for everyone's happiness, for the success of every plan, for every detail of the future. When prayer becomes real, you start to recognize that this level of control belongs only to God. Casting your cares means you stop acting as if you are the center of the universe and you return that role to the one who actually holds galaxies together. It is a humble and freeing exchange. St. Augustine captured the human condition so honestly when he wrote, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you," pointing us to the truth that deep peace is found only in God's presence. Those ancient words describe a deeply modern condition. Many people live with restless hearts, always searching for the next achievement, the next answer, the next reassurance that everything will be okay. Even when circumstances are relatively stable, the inner world can feel noisy, unsettled, and hard to quiet. Restlessness by itself is not a sin, it is often a signal. It tells you that your soul is looking for a place to land. When you try to land on human approval, perfect plans, or constant control, you find only temporary relief. When you allow your heart to rest in God, trust begins to deepen. Resting in God does not mean ignoring your responsibilities or pretending that pain does not exist. It means you acknowledge that beneath every responsibility and every pain, there is a stronger foundation. You may still have questions, yet you allow yourself to lean back into the character of God, trusting that His wisdom is bigger than your understanding. The more you meditate on who He is, faithful, present, compassionate, powerful, the more your restless heart discovers that it is safe to release its grip. Little by little, the knots of fear begin to loosen. John Piper has beautifully expressed it this way: God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him, reminding us that trusting and delighting in God, even in uncertainty, brings Him great honor. Satisfaction in God is not a shallow feeling that appears only on good days. It is the settled conviction that His presence is enough, even when your circumstances are not what you imagined. Leaving things in God's hands means you actively choose to find your deepest sense of security in Him, not in the success of a particular outcome. When your heart is anchored that way, God is glorified, because the world sees a peace that cannot be explained only by favorable conditions. They see someone who continues to trust and worship even when the story is still unfolding. One powerful way to live this out is to create a rhythm of release in your daily life. In the morning, you bring your cares to God, naming them clearly. You speak of the deadlines, the decisions, the conflicts, and the fears that weigh on you. Then, throughout the day, when your thoughts start to drag those worries back, you gently remind yourself of that earlier moment. You can say, I have already placed this in God's hands. I will keep doing what I can, but I will not pick up the weight again. This inner conversation does not eliminate every anxious thought, yet it teaches your soul a new pattern. Instead of spiraling deeper into fear, you repeatedly turn your mind toward trust. At some point, you will likely face a situation that simply does not resolve as quickly as you want. The prayer seems unanswered, or the answer looks very different from what you requested. In those seasons, leaving it in God's hands becomes more than a phrase. It becomes a decision you return to again and again. You decide to believe that God has not gone silent even when heaven feels quiet. You decide to believe that His timing has purpose even when your own timeline is stretched thin. You decide to remember past moments when He carried you through situations that once felt impossible. Those memories are not sentimental. They are stones of testimony that help you stand firm now. Sometimes the hardest part is at night, when the world slows down and your mind speeds up. You lie in bed and suddenly every unresolved issue comes to the surface. In that darkness, trust can feel fragile. This is where a simple, honest prayer can become a lifeline. Lord, I have done what I can today. I place the rest in your hands and choose to sleep under your care. You may have to repeat that prayer several times as your thoughts wander, but each repetition is an act of faith. You are not trying to earn God's attention. You are reminding your own heart of where you have chosen to rest. Peace is not the same as numbness. Numbness avoids feeling by shutting down. Peace allows you to feel, yet keeps you anchored. When you leave things in God's hands, you can still acknowledge disappointment, sadness, or confusion. You can still cry and wrestle and ask questions. Yet underneath those emotions, there is a deeper assurance that you have not been abandoned. God's hands do not slip. His attention does not drift. His love does not weaken when your faith feels small. That reality creates a quiet strength that does not always show on the surface, but it sustains you from within. Walking into the day with peace is a choice you make long before you encounter every situation the day will bring. It is a posture you set in the morning, anchored in your time with God. You might begin with gratitude, naming a few specific gifts that remind you of His care. You might read a few verses that speak about His faithfulness and ask Him to make them alive in your heart. You might simply sit for a moment and breathe in the awareness that you are seen, known, and loved. These small practices do not make you immune to hard news or sudden stress, but they frame your day with a different perspective. As the day goes on, opportunities to either hold on or release will keep appearing. A conversation does not go the way you hoped. A problem at work or at home grows more complicated. A message arrives with unexpected news. In each of those moments, your first reaction might be tension, frustration, or fear. That is natural. But then you remember, you have already given this day to God. You can pause, even for a few seconds, and say, Lord, I hand this back to you. Show me my part and give me peace about the rest. That simple turning of the heart transforms the moment from a closed, pressured space into an open space where God can move. Leaving it in God's hands also means letting go of the need to constantly explain yourself to everyone. You are called to walk in integrity and love, but you are not required to manage every opinion or control every misunderstanding. God sees the hidden motives and the efforts no one else notices. When you know that, you can stop chasing validation from every direction. You can quietly continue doing what is right, trusting that in time, God will shine light where it is needed. That trust might not fix every human relationship, but it protects your heart from being dominated by the fear of what others think. Another dimension of peace comes when you stop replaying what-if scenarios. The mind loves to travel backward and forward, revisiting past mistakes and imagining future disasters. When those thoughts appear, you can acknowledge them without letting them rule you. Bring them into prayer. God, I regret what happened, but I give that moment to your mercy. God, I am afraid of what could happen, but I surrender those possibilities to your wisdom. In doing so, you place both your history and your potential future in His hands, freeing your soul to live more fully in the present. Sometimes peace looks very quiet from the outside. It may not show up as a big smile or loud excitement. Instead, it is the calm willingness to take the next step even when you still have questions. It is the ability to listen more than you argue, to respond gently when you are provoked, to endure uncertainty without collapsing into despair. This kind of peace grows from time spent with God, repeatedly releasing what you cannot control. It is not personality dependent. Even anxious or intense people can learn to live in deeper peace when they practice this posture day by day. Leaving your burdens with God does not always change the situation immediately, but it always changes your experience inside the situation. When you walk into a difficult meeting knowing that you have prayed and surrendered the outcome, you carry yourself differently. You speak with more steadiness because you are not begging the conversation to define your entire value. When you face a medical test or a financial challenge, you can acknowledge your fear while still saying, Lord, whatever the result, I know you will be with me in it. That knowledge does not remove the human sting of hard news, yet it provides a deeper cushion for your soul. Resting in God's hands also opens your eyes to small evidences of His care that you might have overlooked before. A kind message from a friend arrives just when you felt alone. A door you thought was closing suddenly cracks open in an unexpected way. A phrase from Scripture or a song lands in your heart at exactly the moment you needed it. These details may not solve everything, but they remind you that you are not forgotten. When your cares are in God's hands, you become more attentive to these gentle reminders of His presence. Over time, the habit of release begins to change your identity. You no longer see yourself only as someone weighed down by problems, but as someone held by God in the middle of those problems. You move from feeling like a victim of every circumstance to living as a child of a faithful Father. The circumstances might look the same from the outside, yet inside, strength rises. You begin to believe, not just in theory, but in lived experience, that God truly sustains those who cast their cares on Him. This does not mean you never reach out for human support. God often uses people as part of His sustaining work. Sharing your burdens with trusted friends, seeking counsel, or asking for prayer does not contradict leaving things in God's hands. In fact, it can be one of the ways you live out that trust. You admit that you need help, that you do not have all the answers, and that you believe God can work through the community He has placed around you. Even then, you remember that ultimate security does not rest on human strength, but on divine faithfulness. As you continue, you may notice that peace has a way of influencing those around you. People sense when someone carries quiet assurance instead of constant panic. Your calm becomes a testimony, not of your own toughness, but of the God who guards your heart and mind. When friends or family ask how you manage to stay steady, you can honestly say that it is not because everything is easy, but because you have learned to place your worries where they belong. That answer itself can become an invitation for them to explore a deeper trust in God. In the end, leaving things in God's hands and walking into the day with peace is not a one-time achievement. It is a daily choice. Some mornings you will feel strong and focused. Other mornings you will feel fragile and unsure. The promise of God is not that you must always feel brave, but that His sustaining power is available in every kind of day. Each time you choose to trust Him again, each time you breathe out your fears and whisper your surrender, another layer of anxiety loosens its hold. There will be seasons when leaving things in God's hands feels like standing in the middle of a storm with no clear sign of when the clouds will break. In those times, peace might feel like a distant concept instead of a present reality. Yet even there, trust can grow. You can be honest with God about the intensity of the storm. You can say that you do not see the purpose, that you do not understand the delay, that the waiting feels heavy. Honesty does not push God away. It draws you nearer to His heart because you are choosing to bring the rawest part of your soul to the only one who can truly hold it. When you do that, your faith is not weak, it is real. In such storms, worship becomes a powerful act of resistance against despair. Worship does not mean pretending that everything is fine. It means lifting your eyes long enough to remember who God is, even while tears run down your face. You can thank Him for His goodness in the very place where you have not yet seen the answer. You can declare His faithfulness while the outcome is still uncertain. This kind of worship does not deny the pain, but it refuses to give pain the final word. It plants a flag in the ground of your heart that says, God is still worthy, even here. That declaration may be quiet and trembling, but heaven hears it clearly. Another sign that you are truly leaving things in God's hands is the way you begin to treat others who are struggling. Instead of offering quick fixes or impatient advice, you learn to be present with them, just as God has been present with you. You can sit beside someone in their confusion without rushing to solve everything. You can pray with them and then trust that God is working in their story even when you cannot see how. Your own journey of surrender shapes you into a more compassionate companion. You stop seeing people as problems to repair and start seeing them as souls to walk with under God's care. In time, you may look back on seasons that once seemed unbearable and see traces of beauty woven through them. You might notice how your dependence on God grew stronger, how shallow habits fell away, how your perspective on what really matters became clearer. The pain itself may never be something you would have chosen, yet you can still acknowledge that God met you there in ways you might have missed in easier times. Remembering this does not mean you stop asking for relief in current struggles, but it does help you trust that God can bring meaning out of even the darkest chapters. Ultimately, to leave things in God's hands and walk into the day with peace is to accept that your life is held inside a larger story than the one you can see. You are part of a narrative that began long before you were born and will continue long after your earthly years end. The author of that story is not careless or cruel. He writes with the ink of mercy and wisdom, even when the lines feel jagged to you. When you hand him your fears, you are not tossing them into an empty sky. You are placing them into the hands of a God who has already proven his love at the cross and his power in the resurrection. That reality does not answer every question, but it anchors the deepest one, whether you are truly safe in his care. Anxiety may still knock on the door of your heart, but it does not have to live inside as a permanent guest. You have somewhere to take it, again and again if needed. You have someone to hold what you cannot carry, even on the days when your faith feels small and your hands feel weak. As you step into the rest of your day, you do not walk into chaos unaccompanied. You walk beside a Savior who already knows every hour ahead of you and has promised to stay. So when worry rises, let it become your reminder to turn toward him, not away. When questions come, bring them into the light of his presence instead of letting them echo in the dark. And when your heart feels tired, remember this simple truth. The weight that feels too heavy in your hands is light in the hands of the one who loves you more than you can understand. Rest in that love, breathe in that peace, and keep moving forward because he will not let you fall. Step into this day knowing that every unknown path, every heavy question, and every fragile hope is already seen, already surrounded, and already held steady in the faithful, unshakable hands of your God today, tomorrow, and always.